We are just days away from the new Premier League season and we are absolutely buzzing. And as here is tradition, we give our Lost in Possession entire table predictions. The way we're going to do it is 3 episodes. Each of us will have an episode where we give our 1 to 20 table predictions and go through every single team. So we'll kick things off. This episode today is my prediction, so we'll get straight into it. And again, if you do want the links to the others, it will all be in the video description as well. So let's have a little look. And let's kick things off with position number 20. And I will say as well, just to jump in, Reese, I think you said the same thing. I genuinely believe this is probably the hardest year I think we've ever had to predict. And that's not just the top of the table, that is the bottom as well. So I'll start off with 20th place. Again, extremely difficult. I've landed on Burnley. Again, apologies to Burnley fans. I was extremely impressed with Burnley last season. Their defensive record is absolutely insane, and Scott Parker deserves every ounce of credit for it. My only concern is, can you repeat that in the Prem when teams are infinitely better at attacking? I'm not 100% convinced, and I'm not convinced with their attacking options they're going to score enough goals to stay up. So I'm not super confident they're going to come 20th, but it's such a big jump up. That's my concern. However, the big thing here is we are breaking traditions, and I'm saying that the tide is going to turn, and we're not going to have all the three promoted teams go down, which will buck the trend as we know and as we've discussed. I think Brentford could finally get relegated. Been incredible, but at the end of the day, if they'd have sold all their players they'd sold and Thomas Frank was in charge, I'd be sitting here going, they're in trouble. When you throw the fact that Thomas Frank, who's been Mr. Consistent, has then left, Keith Andrews is in, all due respect, hate me in the comments, he doesn't strike me with confidence. I don't know enough about his history, but the bottom line is he is completely and utterly unproven in the Prem with a team that has got worse. That's not a good recipe for success. So, sorry, Brentford fans, I think you could be struggling this year. And again, hit me up in the comments, but I'd be really intrigued to understand why you don't think you're going to be in the relegation fight. And so, yeah, Brentford, for me, I've put them in 19th place. And in 18th place, I've gone, again, a bit reluctantly, I've gone for Sunderland. Now, I know you like them, Reese, and I know you can argue they've made very shrewd signings. But I think because of the signings they've made, they're going to start playing this fancy football and they're going to think they're big time. And I don't think they're ready for that jump up. So I think this could be a team that actually defensively is very poor, where they're trying to play nice football, they're trying to punch above their weight, and they end up failing defensively. Like I love the signing of Xhaka. I think Mark Guiu, great signing, but I don't think it's gonna be enough. So yeah, that's the bottom three. I'll move on to the next section. So I'll touch on these very briefly. Leeds, I think, will be the team to buck the trend and survive. A lot of good signings, decent manager. I know you can argue he's fouled before, but you've got the atmosphere to consider as well. They've got so much depth in attack. I think, anyway, wide players. I think they'll stay up. Yes, they're going to rely on home games, etc. But for me, I do think they've got it in them. Out of the three promoted teams, they've got that little bit of edge, that little bit of history. Next team, Bournemouth. Bottom line, love the manager, massive respect for him. But when you lose your basically entire back line, I don't see how they're gonna. You just can't be the same level. Like they cannot improve defensively on last year. Kirkes, love him. Hoyson, love him. Even Zabani to PSG. Like it's just I don't see how they improve. That's the truth. They've still got good attack, but when you look at the rest of it, they're gonna be leaking goals, and I think that's the concern. For me, next up in 15th, West Ham. I don't have much to say about West Ham. I like Potter, but I don't think their signings have been great, and I think they're going to be in this weird balance of like they'll have a few good wins, the crowd will get behind it, but I don't think they'll be consistent enough to really punch up the table. Then I've gone for Wolves, if it lets me do it. Again, good manager, but you're losing players, so it's like, can we make a real argument to say they're going to go up the table? I don't know. I do like, as I said, I like the manager. signing of Arias, I do like. Is he going to be as good as Cunha though? I just don't know. Like a lot of people are predicting Strand Larsen's going to have a good season, but like again, it's a lot of weight to carry if they're going to really improve and get to the top half of the table. And then for this section, before you boys jump in, I'm going to chuck in Fulham again. Maybe the Khans have got their attention drawn to the wrestling company they've got and not in the football, but they have not made any signings. Really, they've lost a few players. They've not made any signings. So again, Marco Silva, I think he's destined for greatness, but if you're not improving the squad and you look at the top half of the table and the signings people have made, I can't make it. None of these teams give me an excitement or an argument to go they should be higher up. What do you boys think so far of the selections?
Brentford's one that is not that surprising. I think a lot of people will be factoring them to be at least near the relegation because you've lost your two best attack. Well, sorry, you've only lost in Burmo so far, but you're going to lose Wissa. That's pretty much likely to happen. Then you're going to lose. You've already lost Frank. Those were the three key players for Brentford last season in Buemo's goals and Wissa's goals and assists. They were so good for Brentford because I think last year I had them to go down and I think Reece did as well, and they proved us completely wrong. But when you lose two big players like that, Brentford aren't going to be able to replace them goals, and I think that's going to be a massive blow to them. Also, Norgard going to Arsenal as well. It's all just one big blow, and it just feels like it's crumbling down for them. The rest seems sort of fairly reasonable. It will be nice to see at least one promoted side stay up. If it could be, the two at least, I think would be nicer. But I think only having one's probably more reasonable. But yeah, it's hard to complain with these because the Fulham's the weird one here with making no signings. You just don't know what's going on there, and they could be falling further down your list on this.
Hmm.
It's a real shame for them because I think I said it maybe in your one, Reese, but like they felt like a team who could start pushing Europe. So no signings is really a bit of a shame, to be honest. And I think that's probably an opportunity missed if they don't sign anyone else.
Yeah, it's an opportunity missed, which I think a lot of people expect them around this part of the league. Um, I see your point on the relegated sides. I know I won't go into spoilers for myself who I've got in there, but you know, do watch out for Sunderland. I emphasise that. Try Hume is a fantastic fullback. Patrick Roberts has got a point to prove. Mayenda, you know, Dan Nil as well, Xhaka, etc. Some good players in there. Brentford's an interesting one because I think a lot of people are writing them out because of Keith Andrews, but people forget that Southampton went through this when they lost all their players in one go and then survived really well. They just didn't invest properly after that. And I think Brentford are currently in that transition because their data and analysis, research, scouting is so good. Hence why I think they will be okay. They might just get off to a rocky start, I think is the big thing for them, or start off like a house on fire and then start to fall down the table. And Burnley, yeah, it's a matter of can they score goals is the big thing. Losing Trafford was a big loss, but I think Dubravka and they've also got Etienne Green as well, who are two decent goalkeepers. Zian Fleming up front will probably have to do a lot of the heavy lifting for him, which he's capable of doing, but he's not played in the Premier League, so be interested to see where they go from there. But yeah, all makes sense of all those teams. Like I said, they're all teams with abilities to go higher. It's whether the ambitions are there to go higher, but they're going to have to rely on beating these teams around them.
Yeah, and I will say as well, just for Brentford fans, I've assumed in this prediction that Wissa goes. If he stays, I think there is a bit more of a stronger argument to say you can survive. Um, but yeah, let's crack on. So moving up the table, the Mighty Seagulls, my favourite feeder club. I did a TikTok recently. Again, if you're not following, make sure you are following Lost in Possession on TikTok. But like I said, Bloom is great at business, but he's sending the club backwards. And a lot of people didn't like what I said, but the reality is Brighton are a team who should be pushing Europe and should be solidifying a place in the Europa League, but instead of going backwards. and I'm sticking with my guns here. I think they are going to go backwards again. And the fans should not be sitting here celebrating them, going, "Oh, we've made another good purchase, we've made another good signing." Like your best player is Belieber. Now he's being linked with United, and look, all due respect to them, they've been phenomenal at scouting. It's a very good business model, and I think it will keep them in the Prem for a while. But at some point, you've got to look at this and go, "What's our ambition outside of profit? Do we actually want to move up this table?" And I don't think Brighton have that ambition. I think they've got a very nice model that is a great business, and if it was a competition of businesses, I'm sure they'd win first. But it's a football competition at the end of the day, and when you're rinsing and repeating, selling your best players, it's not sustainable. And I look at their this summer, and De Kuiper, a lot of hype around him, more so for FPL than anything. But you look at those other players, and again, FM managers, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see anything there that's particularly exciting that makes me think, yeah, they're gonna improve from selling, João Pedro. If Belieber goes, there's not a player in there that I go, yeah, he's gonna replace Belieber. So yeah, Brighton, not great business. They've lost unbelievable talent. Ferguson, Adingra, Pedro, Estepinian, Barco. Like you can't lose that many players in a window and be happy about it. I'm sorry. So yeah, Brighton. Bottom line is I'm putting them in 12th. Next up, Everton. Reese, I know. Well, actually, I won't spoil it where you had them, but Everton love their business. Dewsbury Hall, great signing. Just confirmed Grealish on loan today. Great business. I like Beto. I know not everyone does. They've got a nice backup in Barry. They've got defensive solidarity. I think this is a team who can find. They've also got a new stadium, which will be nice to see. I think this is a team now who can finally start to separate themselves from the last 3 4 years and separate themselves from this relegation fight. So I'm predicting a decent season for Everton. Up next is Palace. Again, uh, this is a bit of an asterisk saying they don't lose Eze. If they lose Eze to an Arsenal or whoever, I would have some concerns because a lot of their creativity just dies. But yeah, Palace can be mid-table. Yeah, I've put them exactly 10th, so they are pretty much bang on. Um, Again, great win for the Community Shield. Have they got enough squad depth there to challenge for Europe? I'm not convinced. Um, Up next, huge year-on-year improvement. You can't really see the logo, but that is Spurs back in the top half of the table. Again, Thomas the Frank engine. I'm backing him to do something. He's got a pretty low bar of of what to improve on. Pretty much anything at the moment in terms of league finish will look like year-on-year growth, but look, Spurs fans will be concerned, I think, how they're going to start the season. Gibbs White, they got embarrassed on. Madison injured. There's a few other injuries knocking about, which is going to give them a tough start. But I do think their starting 11, when everyone's fit, is good enough to be top half of the table. That's kind of the bottom line. Um, any thoughts on these four in here?
Palace, I think you got to remember they got the Conference League now. Is that going to impact them because they've normally sat around 13th ish? You've got them to get higher than what they normally get, and they're playing more games. And in the Conference League, actually, they could go quite far in it. So I think that might impact them. So that's why I think you might have that just a tad high, but Spurs is just such an unknown. Spurs generally sort of they could be higher, they could be lower. We just don't know at the moment. It's a very unpredictable one. So having them in the middle kind of negates it. I think and helps you out there. But otherwise, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, it it does make sense. I think, with David Moyes, as he's shown over recent years, he's more than capable of getting you into that top section, bottom section, etc. I think Everton at the moment is stabilising after a rocky few seasons, and with their new stadium being being used this year, it might take a couple of games for them to get used to that. So that might allow them to prop up down the table. But Everton can take advantage of the likes of Palace, who are going to be, in the Conference League for example. So they can, overleap them if possible. But yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I disagree slightly on the Spurs one. Like I said, I think the issue they had last year was injuries, but also the lack of tactical flexibility. Because as we saw when they did change tactically, they won the Europa League. So makes sense. I think Brighton seem to be this forever top 10 to 12 teams at the moment. I haven't seen them enhance their squad as much. And if they're only going to sell players, they've got to replace them pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think on the Palace point, I do think that's a fair consideration. Have they got the squad depth to rotate? Are they gonna? Because you're right, Jamie. They might end up rotating in the league rather than the Conference League. So that's a fair point. I think if that is the case, I'd probably back Fulham the most out of the next bracket to take that spot. Let's move up the table. So in eighth position, again, another a beneficiary of this Palace saga. Forest are going to be in the Europa League. Whether they deserve it is a big question. The owner certainly doesn't, but they've managed to get away with it by hook or by crook. Some might argue on their season they deserve it, but I don't know. Again, same argument probably does apply for them. The thought of Forest winning the Europa is such a huge incentive. Not only is it a competition you look at and go, I think they could probably go reasonably far. It's a route into the Champions League, and you can make a very strong argument to say that that is more important or more likely than them getting a top four finish. Um, so we'll see. But yeah, Forest in eighth, Man United in seventh. Can't do any worse than last year. Good signings, but I'm not convinced they're gonna. I'm not convinced they're just going to suddenly go together perfectly, and their new front three is going to gel. In sixth place, we got Newcastle. Disaster transfer window. I am assuming in this prediction that Isak does stay. I think he's going to stay and be forced to play now. And I think after a few weeks of fans hating him, they'll get over it when he starts banging in goals. And I think Villa are better positioned than Newcastle, even with Isak, which might be a bit of a rogue prediction potentially. But Emery's great. He knows the drill. They've narrowly missed out on getting back in the Champions League. So I think this is the season where they're going to go all guns blazing. And I think they're going to do it in fifth place. But it's going to be a big battle between these four teams. Um, anything from you guys before we go on to the top four?
Mm.
Newcastle's just an odd one with the bad transfer window. Isak, I think, will not play the first sort of 3 game weeks, even if he moves to Liverpool. It would be kind of one of them. So you got to see how they do without him, because that can really impact their season. If you see him struggling to score goals, it's a bit of a worry. But they've got very good wingers, Newcastle, so they shouldn't be completely screwed in attack, even if Isak does go. And if he does go, I think they'll replace him with someone. So it won't be like they'll just be high and dry. So they will still have a goal scorer. So I think they'll be up there, but just not going for the places they were last season, for example.
Yeah. I think a lot of us expect Newcastle to be, fine even if they were to sell Isaac, because we expect a replacement to be brought in. And as Jamie said, their wingers are very, very good. I worry about their strength in depth a little bit, which is where I think they need to bulk up a little bit more. I mean, they're okay, definitely on the wings. There's no doubt about that. Um, but could there be one or two injuries away from a bit of a crisis, which would see them fall down the league? However, as I've said before, Eddie Howe is the best coach in the league. He turns unfancied or unfavoured players into world beaters, as we've seen with Gordon, Joel Linton. I would argue Isaac as well, because he wasn't exactly scoring hundreds of goals for Sociedad or Dortmund. So he's the man for them. I think really the best thing they do this transfer window is keep hold of Eddie Howe. That's probably the big argument there. He'll be the one that will get them between that fifth and eighth place, maybe more. Forest, they have a lot of players. They should go far in the Europa League. The pedigree they've got in Europe is outstanding. One of only two, I think, English teams to win the Champions League back to back. So They've got their Man U should have sorted themselves out by now. Villa, an interesting one because I think they're too up and down sometimes. Um, I think you just don't know what you're going to get with Aston Villa, but fifth is a logical place for them to be, or where they should be aiming to be at the very least. But will, European football get in the way for them this season? We don't know.
Cool. Right, let's move on to the top four. And I said it at the start of the episode, but this for me is without question the hardest ever season to predict. One a Prem winner, but the order of this top four. I'm very, very confident that this will be the top four, but the order, I mean, it's very difficult, is what I will say. Um, and I guess my bold prediction before I go into exact positions, my bold prediction for this season is that we could genuinely have a 3 or 4 way title race. I don't think anyone's going to get silly amount of points. I do think there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, but I do think potentially all four of these teams are capable of winning the Prem. Um, so I don't. Yeah, I'll start off in fourth place. My bias, my optimism for the new season was really, really calling me to put Chelsea higher, and I do still believe we can get a top three, top two finish. I just don't know at whose expense it will be at. So that's why I played this a little bit safer. We're in fourth. I do believe we have an outside chance of winning the title. I can't say I'm confident in that, but we're doing the right thing. We're going in the right direction, and I think as a Chelsea fan, I've not been more excited for a season start for a long time. So that's all I'll say on that. In third position, I'm going to go with Arsenal. Again, can I see Chelsea finishing above Arsenal? Absolutely. I think the gap between these two teams will be less than 7, 8 points potentially. Um, so much of their season now depends on whether Gyökeres is good or bad. I think that's where Arsenal are at. We know they're improving. We know they're good defensively. It's make or break for Arteta, and I think the reality is this third place finish I'm predicting. He's going to need a trophy, or people start having to really question him and go, look, you're in phase seven, mate. You've won an FA Cup. What are you doing? Because you've spent 800 mil. So massive, massive season for Arsenal and Arteta, in my opinion. Um, and then this one, the old rivalry, Liverpool and City. Again, I just can't call it. I think City will bounce back a little bit. I've gone Man City in second. The reason I've done this is because although I think they'll bounce back in the attacking sense, I don't see them improving from last season defensively that much. Like you're not suddenly, and look, Rodri's a big part of this. Don't make no mistake. And again, if he comes back to fitness, he hits his peak form again. Maybe this changes, but you were so bad defensively last season, and like I don't see what's changed. Does Gvardiol moving into centre back really save all those problems? I don't know. Like Nori, I love him, but he's not defensively great. He's very attacking and he'll get goals. I'm just not convinced by City's defence. That's why I went City second, um, which of course means Liverpool will retain the title. Bottom line is they didn't spend any money last year. They won the title at Cantor. They've finally found the money pot and decided to invest. So logically speaking, Liverpool are going to win the league again. As I said, if they don't, I mean, it's one of these three teams here, I will not be shocked at all. My only concern for them is will the new signings gel and is Van Dijk past it based on the Community Shield? So that's the only concerns I'll say on Liverpool. But yeah, it's logical to say they'll retain, I think.
Yeah, that is completely logical. I think the bookies would make Liverpool the favourite. I mean, they didn't spend much money last season. Spent loads this season, so a champions squad only gets stronger, which is interesting. So I completely understand that. I disagree. Van Dijk's past it, FYI. Man City, yep. At the moment, you don't know what you're going to get with them because they're coming off such an underwhelming season, trophyless. In fact, they might just say, "Look, why don't we go for the League Cup and FA Cup or something at least?" I don't think they can do two trophyless seasons. Arsenal, yeah, fair enough. And then, yeah, Chelsea's the big one because, like you said, it's can they manage the expectations from their performances over pre-season? I don't look too much into their game against AC Milan. Um, I look all of it into their performances in the Club World Cup, where they did lose. They did lose a game, but they won when it matters, which is the important thing. You know, there's no point celebrating beating a team 3 or 4 rounds before a final. Hint, hint. Arsenal. Um, so yeah, it's if Chelsea manage the expectations, I think they can, but we don't know if they draw or get off to a slow start. The pressure's well and truly on.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you put Chelsea fourth. I thought you were going to go at least second. I thought you were going to be like, because you've been saying like you've even in the sort of after the Club World Cup, the sort of few friendlies you've had, you've been like, we look very very sharp, very very good. So I thought you'd have them higher than what you do. So I think you may have just played it safe and not gone for what your actual opinion is. I'm going to call you out on that. Um, but yeah, Arsenal I think will be roughly up there. Once again, they are the best defensive team, and now they're adding the attacker. That should see them improve, in my opinion. But is it too late for Arteta? City, I know you said we are bad defensively, and I do agree we were. We did only concede one more goal than Chelsea last season in in the Premier League. So it wasn't actually, as horrific as you made, but it wasn't very good in the slightest. So I think Rodri will improve that. And I think we looked better defensively towards the end of the season. But I hope we don't play like that all season because it was actually dull. I'm a defender of Pep in sort of like he's not killed football, but what we did at the end of the season was we're getting 3 points here and there, and that's it. And it was dull football in that. So I hope it's not like that. I think Rodri does improve us, but Liverpool being favourites, the only question is it's really hard to retain a title. Not many teams have done it. Liverpool haven't done it as a Premier in the Premier League, and not many clubs have done it in the Premier League. So that's the question asked on them. But if it is this top four, no one's going to go. That was a massive shock.
Yeah, I think the top four feels. I don't want to say nailed on, but the order of that top four is the exciting bit. I think can a team break it? Is one of those teams going to drop off? We don't know. Um, but yeah, any order of that top four, I would not be overwhelmingly surprised with. So yeah, it's a really exciting season, I think. That is all we've got time for in this episode. As I said, we're going to be doing 3 of these, so make sure you check out the links below. Make sure you subscribe. Yeah, but as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.